Indonesia Lunch Dialogue, brought to you by the Lippo Group at the World Economic Forum on East Asia.
Khatib Basri, only 48, graduate of UE, appointed in May 2013, he was quickly challenged in September 2013 by the moniker the Fragile Five, when Indonesia faced the reality of the possibility of quantitative easing. How Pak Khatib and his team was able to turn that around to the point now that Indonesia is once again on very stable fiscal and financial footing is something we hope he will tell us about, and how, even though there is an election coming up by July 9th, he's very confident that the country will not in any way experience any shaking.
Thank you very much, Karim. Exactly what you said. A few days after I was appointed as a Minister of Finance, Ben Bernanke welcomed the new monetary policy, normalization of the monetary policy in the US by giving a signal about the possibility of doing this tapering off. And Indonesia, together with other 4 countries, including Brazil, South Africa, India, and Turkey, immediately were considered as a member of the group, the so-called the Fragile Five. That was, I would say, unfortunate situation. So at that time, I had 2 choices as a Minister of Finance. The ideal one, it's by expanding the supply side, improving the infrastructure, investment climate, doing business, etc. But I do understand that it takes time to get there. So I need to be very pragmatic. The best way to handle the issue of the current account deficit is do the counter-cyclical policy. I call this policy a triple winning. It's good for macro, for fiscal, for the current account. It's good for the poor people because we provide the cash transfer. And it's good for environment because it will reduce the fossil fuel demand for the gasoline. My colleague from the central bank, he raised the interest rate by 175 basis points. I do understand that many market players were so skeptical about the government policy, but fortunately, within 4 months, we've been able to lower the current account deficit from $10 billion or 4.4% of GDP to become $4 billion by the end of 2013, or around 1.9% of GDP. The overall current account deficit was still around 3.2%. So it means that the government and the central bank may continue this counter-cyclical policy during the 2014. So I'll tell my friends from business sector, don't expect the economic growth will be higher than 6%. It is by design. We need to slow down the growth to ensure that next administration will have a ground for a better or solid economic growth in the next administration. So it means that we will continue with the fiscal tightening, with the monetary policy, then the next administration can go for the, a better and faster economic growth. But I do understand we cannot continue with this macro policy, prudential, because I think in the medium and the longer term, we need to handle the issue from the supply side. Last but not least, in my view, the future of the comparative advantage will no longer physical capital asset. This will be an intangible one with this policy. So it means that the ground, all of this should be supported by good governance. One thing that we learned after the decentralization in Indonesia, there is something worse than organized corruption, which is unorganized corruption. I think we need to handle all this issue. By providing this issue, Karim, I do believe that I won't be surprised if Indonesia can grow 7 to 8% a couple of years from now.
Okay, Pak Lutfi, we leave you with a rather tough question in that in the past 12 months or so, the Republic's trade policy has attracted quite a number of criticism, maybe the mineral laws, imports of essential food supplies, and the new trade bill. How can outsiders make sense of the trade and investment laws in Indonesia? Is there something that you can help us with here so we can grasp how we go forward?
Where is Indonesia today, and where is Indonesia going to be tomorrow, by tomorrow with its trade policy? Indonesia now is in a transition. We may look very defensive today, but we will be very aggressive tomorrow. And my commitment and assurance that Indonesia is still open for business. When I left Japan at the end of 2013, the investment grew, not by 100, not by 200%, but it went sevenfold to $4.7 billion. This is the second wave of Japanese industrialization in Indonesia. So I look at the number today. The export of automotive out of Indonesia today, this year, 2014, is $4.5 billion. By 2016, 2017, we'll reach $10 billion. With today's dollars, that means Indonesia is already a champion in the single production base out of ASEAN. Why? Because the number will $10 billion mean the second biggest export of Indonesia by amount after crude palm oil, this is a very, very good news for a country like Indonesia, because cars is absorbing technology, skilled labor, and also exporting high value with that. Change in ASEAN as a unity is blinding. And I saw how the Japanese put ASEAN countries top in the investment destinations. I think 3 ASEAN countries in the top 5 and about 6 in the top 10. While we're making transition, while I said that Indonesia may look defensive today and will be aggressive in the future, also with ASEAN. Transitions is always pain. But, and something when transitions, the wisdom in Indonesia is always like this. Nothing is easy in the country, but nothing is impossible. And I'd hate to say this 5 years from now to those of you that skip the blindness and take the shortcut, and I will say, I told you so. Thank you.